Wild Tales is sponsored by Cotswold Outdoor. When we're out in the elements, we're in our element. And outside retail expert Cotswold Outdoor is helping more of us to get out with the right kit. Thanks also to their support, the National Trust is helping walking communities to access the UK's outside spaces. And we're working to fix 15,000 kilometres of paths and trails by 2030 for everyone to enjoy. Find your element with Cotswold Outdoor.
It happens so quickly. It swoops down and literally takes the scoop of ice cream off the top and just flies away with ice cream in its mouth. And I'm terrified.
All of a sudden, this huge scream went up and we turned round and she just looked absolutely horrified and was shouting, "The seagull stole my ice cream."
It's a familiar scene at a British seaside town. You're stopping for a snack when you have your treat pinched by a precocious gull. Seagulls are getting bigger, badder, and more of a pest, or so we're led to believe. But are we missing the point about seagulls? Could their behaviour reflect higher intelligence and resourcefulness, traits to be admired rather than maligned? We're heading to Poole Harbour on England's southwest coast to uncover the truth about seagulls. Love them or hate them, you're in for some surprises. Hello, I'm Ranger Rosie Holdsworth. If you're a National Trust podcast listener, you've probably noticed that we look a bit different. We've changed to bring you even more immersive stories in nature and history. Head to our new podcast Back When for hidden histories and tales from time, but stay here for nature mysteries. Welcome to Wild Tales, Gangster Gulls. So no trip to the seaside is complete without a fish and chip shop stop. And I can see along this lovely parade of shops here, there's a bright and breezy looking chip shop ready to go. Hello, how are we doing? Great, thank you. Could we have 2 bags of chips, please?
No problem.
Thanks. Do you have much bother with seagulls?
Yes, usually swoop down from the ledge above and take the whole tray, food, chips and fish.
Well, hopefully the chips will tempt them in because that's what we're here to see today.
If you throw them about, they'll be here in seconds.
Thanks very much. As a countryside manager in West Yorkshire, my usual haunts are blasted moorlands and wooded valleys, so to come down to the south coast is a real rare treat for me. And as we stand here on the side of the quay, I can see to my right-hand side some very industrial-looking docks, and by sharp contrast on the left, there's some really expensive-looking yachts. And a cormorant just popped up in front of us here in the bay. Perching on some of those yachts with their beady eyes fixed keenly on me are several hungry-looking seagulls. But I can see over here someone else looking hungry, and I think it must be Maya Bambrick, who I'm hoping is going to teach me a thing or two about gulls. Hi Maya, I hope you're hungry. I've brought you some chips.
Hiya, thank you very much.
I have to confess I'm a bit of a seagull agnostic, so I'm hoping you can tell me some things that might convert me.
I'll try my very best.
So Maya, you're an ornithologist. Where does that interest in birds come from?
I grew up in Crawley in Sussex. I happened to watch Springwatch on the telly one day, and I was absolutely entranced in some of the wildlife you could see here in the UK. So I managed to persuade my mum to take me to my local nature reserve. From then on, every weekend, I was in the bird hides.
You've continued that interest and you're a youth representative for the British Trust for Ornithology, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So trying to get as many young people interested with birds, with wildlife, with citizen science.
As well as being in her final year at university, Maya also works for Birds of Poole Harbour, helping to engage the public with the incredible wildlife here. That brings us neatly on to seagulls. Oh, that's a misnomer, isn't it?
Ooh.
I shouldn't call them seagulls.
We all say there's no such thing as a seagull. So there are many different gull species here in the UK. In Poole Harbour, we have sort of 6 main common gull species. So we've got one right behind us at the moment, but this is a herring gull.
Am I right in thinking that they're the guys who get all of the gulls a bit of a bad rap?
It is indeed. So this is the classic seagull, as much as I don't like to say it. This one here is an adult. You can see it's got a lovely grey back, white underneath. It's got that quite big, large yellow bill with a red dot on it, which is classic of a herring gull.
The red dot on the beak is a very important part of some gulls' physical makeup, as Dr. Viola Ross-Smith from the BTO explains.
They're actually fantastic, fascinating birds to watch. Nico Tinbergen, the famous Dutch scientist, got a Nobel Prize in 1973 for his studies on the behaviour of herring gulls. So one of the things he discovered was that herring gulls have got a red spot on their beak, and chicks peck at the red spot when they first hatch to make parents regurgitate food. It's not just herring gulls that do this. All the large white-headed gulls have the same red spot on the beak.
So not just a random marking, but an evolutionary tool.
You can see it's also got those grey streaks on the head.
Yep.
So that's adult winter plumage. So the younger birds will look brown, streaky. But you can see there's actually one just behind it. And this here is probably the youngster of this adult here.
Right. And those chicks can be quite demanding at times.
So they'll actually chase the adults around up until they have their next clutch in the spring.
Wow.
As we've been walking, I can hear some of the food begging calls from the herring gulls, and that's because they're still chasing the parents around.
Speaking of food, herring gulls have some ingenious ways of getting a tasty morsel or two.
They'll rise up in the air, drop shellfish down onto the ground, and then swoop down so then it's broken open. And they'll keep doing that. They'll be persistent until it's actually cracked open.
Right.
So, herring gulls will do it, carrion crows, greater black-backed gulls.
And if you think that's impressive,
you might sometimes be able to see herring gulls doing a little dance.
Cool.
So they kind of pat their feet onto the grass, and what they're trying to do is charm the worms to replicate rain, the sound of rain.
Yeah.
And then you'll see them plucking a worm out of the grass.
Oh, nice.
They will scavenge for chips and things, but they have such a bad rep. And what's really important is learn about their ecology. Then we get more understanding of why they're doing that.
Yeah. It sounds like they're quite intelligent birds then, and they're basically opportunists, and the opportunity is humans with chips and shellfish lying around. Love them or hate them, herring gulls are facing some serious challenges, as Dr. Viola Ross-Smith explains.
They're a bit of a marmite species. Some people love them. I love them. But a lot of people really dislike them, particularly in the summer when you've got the kind of classic summer headlines about gulls taking over, eating your chihuahuas, they're going to be coming for your children next, that kind of thing. That's the herring gull that is typically being demonised. They're not going to eat your children. They're actually a red-listed seabird. They're on the Birds of Conservation Red List. They have been since 2009 because of population declines. So they might seem like they're taking over, but they're actually not. Part of the reason, I think, for the misconception is because their stronghold is in urban areas. They're doing pretty well nesting on urban rooftops, partly because there aren't so many predators in places like that, and they can get predictable year-round food from the rubbish we drop, for example. But in the wider countryside, their numbers are not doing well at all. The most recent seabird census, which was published in November 2023, showed really stark declines for herring gulls across the country. I think we need to learn to love herring gulls and live alongside them, because we're in a biodiversity crisis, and if a big, strong, adaptable species like the herring gull isn't doing very well, then what does that say about the prospects for more fragile species?
Now that I know a bit more about herring gulls, I'm keen to discover what other species are around. We've wandered a little bit further along the quay. I can see the old lifeboat house and the lifeboat museum here. There's some lobster pots piled up on the quay. The cormorants followed us, and we're into some of the fishing boats in the harbour here. And perched on the rooftop of the museum, Maya points out two very different looking gulls.
So we've got on the left-hand side is a herring gull, and on the right-hand side we've got a much smaller species of gull. It's got a grey back, white underside, dark red legs and a dark red bill, and that there is a black-headed gull.
Why is it called a black-headed gull? Because that guy's definitely not got a black head.
So first of all, this bird is in winter plumage.
Right.
It just has what we call little earmuffs, so little black marks behind the eye. Whereas in the summer, when they're in their breeding plumage, they actually have a brown hood on their head. So even in the summer, they don't have a black head.
Oh, helpful. But they're a much smaller, daintier looking gull, aren't they?
Well, they're one of our smallest species of gull.
Are they going to bother me for my chips?
Yeah, so they also are quite generalist feeders. So you will see them come down, maybe not to steal your chips, but definitely make the most of any that are discarded on the ground. But also they'll be chasing after fishing boats as well in the harbour. So very much, again, opportunists, as most gull species are.
As we make our way along the quay towards Beta Park for some more gull spotting, an unexpected visitor appears.
Kingfisher.
Kingfisher. Oh, wow. Yeah, there he goes. Zoom. Yeah.
But this is the best place in the winter to see kingfishers in Poole Harbour. Along these rocks as well, you can often scan along and there'll be cormorant, shag. Sometimes there'll be waders as well, like oyster catcher, dunlin, ring plover.
Right. There's always something to see.
Yeah, even in such an urban area like this, it's still so important for birds.
Yeah. We pause as Maya hands me her binoculars. She's spotted something in the distance.
You see over there, just towards Beta Park, you've got a line of gulls.
Yeah. Sitting beautifully on top of the
Exactly.
goalposts. Yeah. So what are we looking at there?
So these are all black-headed gulls.
Yeah, they really vary actually, don't they? Some of them have almost got a full kind of hat on, and some of them have just got the earmuffs.
Exactly. So that's why if you're trying to get into gulls, it's also important to learn the differences in plumage.
Yeah.
So what's their winter plumage, what's their breeding plumage.
Yeah, I hadn't realised how much they'd vary just between individuals.
So I've been scanning along these flocks of black-headed gulls to see if there are any, what we call med gulls for short, and there are. So they look quite similar, but they kind of lack any black on the wings.
They're very smart looking, aren't
Yeah,
they?
so we call them white wingers.
Oh, very nice.
So you can see it's got a bit of a chunkier bill than a black-headed gull, much brighter red,
Yeah.
and also kind of a black mask. When I was younger, one of my first memories of gulls was when I was birding at Pagham Harbour in Sussex, and I didn't know what it was until I got my scope, had a look, and it had this amazing, bright red bill, bright red legs, and I just thought it was absolutely stunning. I didn't realise gulls could be that kind of colourful and striking. Not that there's anything wrong with a lovely immature herring gull, but as sort of a beginner birder, that really stood out to me.
I'd not seen them before, so it's a really nice treat to see Mediterranean gulls.
We've got about 300 breeding pairs of Mediterranean gull, and that again goes towards that designation of Poole Harbour being an SPA, a special protection area.
Poole Harbour was classified as an SPA in 1999 to safeguard its important bird populations, including rare, vulnerable and migratory species. However, despite this protection, gulls still face many challenges.
Because they're a ground nesting bird, they're quite at risk from a number of species, carrion crow, raven, foxes, badgers, even other gulls. So greater black-backed gulls, the second largest gull in the world, will predate eggs, chicks.
Despite the perception that gulls are abundant, all of our so-called common gull species are either amber or red listed. This includes all the species we've spotted today.
As well as climate change impacting food availability, the lack of fishing disregards the closing of landfill sites and also a lack of nesting opportunities. So it's not a particularly good outlook, and which is why it's so important that we survey them.
Later this afternoon, Maya and a team of volunteers will take part in a winter gull survey, a citizen science project for the BTO. This survey only happens once every 10 years and is said to be quite a spectacle. And the best part, Maya has asked me to take part.
We're going to be meeting up at dusk to count the gulls coming into roost.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, I will be there.
My name is Emma Caulfield and I'm a research ecologist at the British Trust for Ornithology. We are a citizen science-led research organisation. The Winter Gull Survey began in 1953 to survey and produce population estimates for our wintering population of gulls here in the UK. So the Winter Gull Survey is taking advantage of a behaviour called roosting. Essentially, during the sunset, you might see them flying overhead. in lines of a couple of hundred coming off pig fields or any other kind of feeding areas, and they'll travel to larger water bodies, and they're just a wonder to watch. Multiple thousands of gulls will arrive onto this unassuming water body, and suddenly it's a flurry of gull activity and squawking and pecking and all the rest.
Just a few hours ago we were down right in the centre of the town in a very busy urban environment, and we've come probably only a couple of miles out here to Ham Common, and it's a beautiful heathland. We've got the sun setting behind us, and right on cue here's Maya, and she's got someone else for me to meet. Hello Paul, really nice to meet you.
Hello.
Paul is one of the co-founders of Birds of Poole Harbour, a small charity that helps connect people with the diverse bird life in the area.
A bit of work I think most people know us for is the osprey reintroduction, which we started in 2017. And now in this landscape just here we've got breeding ospreys, which is the first in southern England for 200 years. So we're small, but we're very, very active and quite passionate, I guess.
Can you tell us what we're here to do?
This evening there's a big coordinated national winter gull roost survey that's being carried out at all the really important wetland sites, both coastal and inland as well, so gravel pits and reservoirs. And the reason it's happening is because gulls on the whole are a group of birds that are sadly struggling for lots of different reasons, breeding and in terms of their overwintering populations, because the picture changes this time of year. Not only do we have our local gulls, you know, some of the birds that you saw earlier in town, the herring gulls, but we also get big arrivals of gulls from all over Europe that come and spend the winter here as well.
And there's no guarantee how many gulls we will see tonight.
If it's a really torrid night, if it's a really wet, windy, yucky, horrid night, it's probably tens and tens of thousands. But tonight, anything between 15 to 20,000. But what we'll do is we'll go down to the beach and then we'll go and count the gulls in our sector just here. And then that's us done for the survey.
Head down to the beach
Yeah,
and
let's do
have
it.
a closer look. Leaving the viewing point behind us, we carefully make our way down the wooden steps onto the water's edge, where Paul and Maya set up the scope, ready to begin the rather daunting task of counting the gulls.
Grab the scope, look through there, grab the handle and just pan right and you'll see how many birds are out there.
Oh my word, yeah.
Keep going, and there's thousands of birds out there.
What look like just little sort of ripples in the sand and dark patches are all actually gulls.
Yeah, I'm going to start looking out with Maya now and just checking this little finger of land out in front of us. Ready, Maya?
Yeah, ready to go.
Because I'll scan 3 or 4 times first, just so I've got a rough idea in my head what's out there and roughly how much is out there. So I'm going to start counting black-headed gulls.
So we're only counting birds that are settled on the water.
Black-headed gulls are the smallest. The ones I think people find tricky are things like common gulls. Quite cute looking, but they're a bit nondescript. And the greater blackbacks are big bruisers, big loners.
Just straight down from the wind turbine to the right.
Oh, is that what I thought was a goose?
Yes.
It's not a goose, it's a
It's
gull.
not a goose, it's a gull.
There's 2 different gull calls there. So the really high pitch, that's the herring gulls. And then the ones you can hear that are going, oh,
Yeah.
oh, that's the greater blackbacks.
Ah. So we're just watching dozens of gulls flying in really, really low over the water, and the sun's set now, it's dropped behind the horizon, but the light coming across the water with the gulls flying low across is just extraordinarily beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, if you come and have a look through the scope here, but can you see all the birds sat on the island out there?
Oh, yeah. Whoa. Again, when you get your eye in, there's absolutely hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Mostly gulls. Are they chilling out, having a chitter-chatter before bed?
Birds in the winter are all very sociable because they're all looking to learn off each other where the best feeding sites are, and you know, they get a lot of information off of each other. So yeah, they're probably all just having a bit of a catch-up at the moment. The islands that they're sat on, that's the gull colony in the spring and summer.
Ah,
so
right.
those are the gull breeding islands.
Yeah.
When we first surveyed those in 2008, there were about 8,500 pairs of black-headed gulls nesting on these islands. But with rising water levels, it's eroding the islands away. When we went out and surveyed last year, we only had about 4,000. That one of the reasons Poole Harbour stays as beautiful as it is, I mean, this landscape we've got in front of us is like this because we have important numbers of gulls coming here.
Because it's protected and
Exactly.
Yeah.
So making sure that nothing happens to those islands or trying to safeguard that colony is really key to the whole harbour's preservation over the next 20 odd years.
Yeah.
Or forever, really.
So we're just about losing the light. There's still a couple of straggler gulls hanging around, but mostly I think they've headed off to roost now. Have you got an idea, Paul, of how many we've managed to count this evening?
On my list here, we've got just the 2 greater blackback gulls, 36 common gull, 41 herring gull, 14 common gull and 1 med gull.
As we pack away our scopes and binoculars, the sun has finally set. I just want to say a massive thank you to Paul and to Maya for showing me around today. So I've learnt that gulls are an incredibly diverse set of species. There's no such thing as a seagull, and I'm now a fully fledged gull fan. They're incredibly intelligent birds, and rather than get angry about gulls when they steal our chips, we just need to learn to live with them and understand that they're just carving out an ecological niche like any other successful species. Thank you for listening to the very first episode of Wild Tales. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do you have an amazing story about the natural world? I'd love to hear from you. You can find the podcast on Instagram @WildTalesNT, where you'll also find behind-the-scenes moments, nature's giants, and the micro wonders that make our world the place it is. Use the hashtag WildTalesWednesdays or email podcasts@nationaltrust.org.uk to send us pictures and stories of the wildness around you. Make sure you get every episode by following Wild Tales on your favourite podcast app. Even better, leave us a review or comment on an episode. I'd love to hear what you think. See you next time. Wild Tales is sponsored by Cotswold Outdoor, your outside retailer and epic guides to adventure. Quick breathers, calming walks, or heart-pounding hikes, we feel better when we get out more. Find quality kit and 50 years of outdoor wisdom. Plus, National Trust supporters get 15% off walking kit in-store and online. Feel in your element, in the elements at cotswoldoutdoor.com.